It's the matter at hand. It's the matter. It's the matter at hand. It's the matter. It's the matter at hand. It's the matter. It's the matter at hand. When you settle down, when you're acting responsible, you remember her, and you remember yourself, 'cause now's the time. When you breast the passion, yeah, now's the time. There is no wrong, and there is no right. You mess with me, I get you back for it, baby. 'Cause it's a matter at hand. It's the matter. It's the matter at hand. It's the matter. It's the matter at hand. Once again, you got the right where you want me. I'm grabbing a seat, I'm taking a number. I know exactly who I am, and I know exactly where I am, and I know just where I'm gonna wind up someday. Without ever thinking you're just you. just one song and dance. Come across pretty, don't come across nice. This 5 times with sweet voice. Oh, I just want from life to do whatever I like. Tell immediately to Sonics and poetry. 'Cause I'm gonna do what I wanna do. Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna say what I wanna say. Yeah, yeah, 'cause I just want from life to do whatever I like. Tell immediately to Sonics and poetry. I went to the doctor and asked for pain to see ya. He said, son, I've left you, can't see ya. Then he gave me a kill, it just couldn't be beat. He said, next stop drinking and never gonna see you. Hey! Woo! Oh, it's 6 o'clock, you gotta be to work by 7. Leave the light on, sure looks like it'd be heaven. Well, I whip my food on gasoline, I just never stop drinking and never gonna sleep, and just never stop drinking. Never stop drinking. Never stop drinking. Never stop drinking and never gonna sleep.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Rick Coughlin here for another edition of Grove Sessions, a pandemic edition. I'm here with Las Drogas, and we are sipping on Party in the Back IPA, North Center Brewing Company. You can get in cans. It's a special collaboration beer that the folks at North Center Brewing Company were kind enough to brew for us. And we got to enjoy it over the summer at our Grove Sessions back here in the courtyard. Ton tons of amazing artists came out and did their thing this summer, pandemic style, socially distanced style. Las Drogas, the band, included, and they're here in the studio today joining us, and I'm super excited to have you guys. So thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great performance, man. I really dig your sound, and being somebody that's, I know there's this influence in there just because I know you guys and I've known you guys for a while, but you know, the whole John Spencer kind of flux comes in there, and I just like that dirty, gritty rock and roll sound. You guys do that really well. And I know it was like the first time that you guys had performed together in a while. That was like a tight turnaround, right?
Yeah, I felt like we were kind of rusty because thanks to the pandemic in 2020, you know, we had a bunch of shows booked, and of course a bunch of them got canceled. And then this Grove thing was kind of like a ray of hope because we were able to play an excellent performance. The weather was great.
Yeah.
The other bands on the bill were great. But I was almost kind of like, oh man, this is such a great opportunity. I hope we don't sound too rusty.
Yeah.
But you know, at the end of the day, it was kind of like, well, it was like riding a bike. You know, it's just good old rock and roll, which is what we specialize in. So, you know, we didn't feel like we were as rusty as we could have been. So
you didn't come off rusty to me, and I've seen you guys play before, so it was a super fun set, and it's great being able to go back and, like, you know, the live stream was obviously out there. We did, you know, live streamed all the performances, but you know, we had another videographer, Tim Blackman, capturing everything in 4K. So he does an amazing job. And then Taylor, Greensheilds from Fundamental Sound Company, doing the mixing and mastering. So it sounds great. So if you're just catching this broadcast now and you didn't watch the performance, go back and watch the performance after the full stream is up, because and put on some headphones or make sure it's going through some good speakers, because that's the best way to experience Las Drogas. So
we're very happy with the audio quality. Tim and Taylor are awesome. I always love working with those guys. They're such nice folks, and they know their stuff. So the tone was captured very well.
Yeah,
that wasn't even our actual gear, that we were borrowing Grove stuff, but it still sounded wonderful.
Yeah.
And I was
your fingers do the walking at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So we just showed up with our guitars plugged in, but everything sounded good. So the gear here at Grove is excellent.
Yeah,
I was able to play through your vintage Fender, which sounded, I'd never played through before, but as soon
it's a
as
great amp, isn't it?
Oh, this will work.
This'll do. This'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is this? Some old piece of shit from the 60s? God.
Nope. You know me. I'm a Fender man. I love those Fender amps.
Yeah. Those, I don't know. The deluxe reverb can sometimes be a little unforgiving, but I don't know. I've gone back and forth between that and a pro reverb for many years. Now I got rid of the pro reverb, just strictly deluxe. But
cool.
Yeah. Sometimes you thin the herd a little bit. Keeping it simple.
But yeah, getting back to that one point. So we played September 19th here in the Grove courtyard, but that was the first time we had done a public performance since
middle of January. We played at the Blind Pig with 4 other bands that night.
There were 3 other bands. We played with some pretty hard rocking bands. One of the bands that we played with at the Blind Pig played that same Grove party. That was Edison Hollow.
Oh yeah,
and they're very great.
Those guys rock.
Yeah, even if you're not sure if you like metal, those guys do it very well. Like you can't help into what they're doing. They're really talented. But yeah, so we played this rock and roll show at the Blind Pig, and we were, you know, I guess this happens all the time when you play music like we do. We'll get lumped in with mellower bands, we'll get lumped in with really heavy metal bands, but we still manage to hold our own because it's just good old rock and roll. And it's got that grit there. So nobody ever, you know, it's like, well, what are you doing here kind of thing. So we try to blend in, but do our own thing at the same time. But yeah, we played this really cool show in mid-January of 2020. The pandemic was not even really a twinkle in our eye quite yet. And we're looking forward to a great year because in 2019, which is really, that was when Las Drogas was rebooted. We kind of formed Voltron because We got Brian on drums, and I was confident. It's like, all right, this is the drummer that is good for the band. Like this is what we need. And then I pulled in my brother Eric, because I wanted a bassist, and Eric and I have played music together since we were kids.
Yeah.
So we kind of know what's going on. We almost have this nonverbal communication.
Oh, I bet.
For that type of music. So I just tell him what key it's in, and I can kind of.
And then it's go time.
Just, yeah. Yep. And, so
that's awesome.
So we played that show in January. We didn't even know what the rest of the year would behold. But
I think you had at least 3 or 4 other gigs booked.
Yeah,
in the spring.
Yeah,
and all that just went away.
I know we had one booked right as I remember having a conversation with you on the phone, where we had a gig that weekend, and we were like, we're still so fresh and trying to figure out how to even feel about the severity of the pandemic. So this was like March.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can't remember where it was, but it was
Detroit.
We had
a
Detroit
beach party.
Yeah,
that's what it was.
We actually had a show
Eric,
that Friday the 13th of March, and we actually canceled it because that's when I was sent home from work.
Yeah.
To work from home, and I remember we were on the phone. It's kind of like, yeah, I don't know if driving into Detroit to play this show right now is a good idea when everything's getting shut down. So that was the first time we had to cancel a show, and I don't know how long. But we did it for what we felt at the time was all the right reasons.
And but the show still went on even without you guys, though, huh?
It did, yeah.
In hindsight, we made the right choice, I think.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, that was like probably the first awakening type moment of being like, crap, like this is not gonna be just a short ordeal, like
yeah. I had the same experience. I was up in Grand Rapids when stuff started getting shut down, and I was at a conference.
At McCall?
I was at it's a ed tech conference or whatever, and so
you and I've hung out at those a couple times.
Definitely, always a fun time, but we were kind of like, we weren't sure what. I mean, people weren't in Grand Rapids. I mean, it was like full force. I mean, we didn't realize what was happening until we were, and we're like on a limo bus with a bunch of people, and we're going to like different, we're like bar hopping around and stuff and going into all these places. And then like the next day it was like, oh, this is some serious shit. We didn't know because we'd never been through it before. That's been the whole weird thing about this whole thing is that almost nobody alive right now has ever been through this. You just see old black and white pictures of people wearing masks, and you're like, okay, well, it was a little different back then. You didn't have certain technologies, but
people weren't flying on jet planes all over the place. People weren't packing into rock and roll venues to see shows and stuff. So what I was getting at was 2019 was a really good year for Las Drogas because the band Las Drogas has been around off and on for years.
Talk about that a little bit, the history.
I will, the entity's been around for a bit, but this I really feel strongly that it was the tail end of 2018. I'd known about Brian. We'd seen each other around town. I'd run into him at the tap rooms open mic where he would be up there to jam and stuff. So, I was looking for that right drummer, and of course, I've tested out many drummers over the years. So once I got Brian in there in the tail end of 2018,
we joined and started working through stuff, and then we had a gig within weeks of me joining. It was Mosquito Fest, right? Or
well, we played the Ale House.
Oh yeah,
and that was like maybe
as a duet.
Yeah, and that was like maybe after I brought him in 2 weeks before,
right?
And then we played the fall version of Mosquito Fest, which is Pheasant Fest. That's where we had Eric in there. So we
I wasn't at Pheasant Fest. I was like
right.
2 more gigs later before I started.
So I was test driving the configuration, but I was really confident. I was like, all right, Brian's the man. He can like his style is perfect for this type of music.
Yeah. I agree with that.
That was the end of 2018. And then 2019, we played 18 shows, which is a lot for a band that was kind of just newly booted. So for 2020, we had a lot of high hopes, and we would have, we had a lot of shows on the books. So we're not sure what 2021 is going to hold. We're expecting we'll probably play a lot of outdoor events. Hopefully.
I think that's what it's looking like for sure, which, is not a terrible thing either. There are challenges to playing outdoor shows, obviously, especially when it gets hot. But
Rainy.
Or rainy, right. And we totally looked out. I mean, we lucked out with weather this summer. Every time we did the event here, it was gorgeous and it wasn't too hot. And I was like, okay, something's on our side. So
I showed up to several of those courtyard shows, and they were highlights of the summer because there's nothing else going on, but it was a safe place, and the courtyard back there is wonderful. And you know, in September, you never know, like the weather starts to get more iffy once you get closer to fall there.
Yeah.
And we lucked out in September. That September, it got a little cool at night, but that's nothing you can't deal with. But we were very, very lucky to have a great show for the Equinox party.
I mean, I think it's reasonable to say you could, you know, plan a summer around, you know, outdoor shows. You know, I think people are getting better at the whole, like, how do I put on an event in the middle of a pandemic kind of thing, you know, and being creative about, you know, a number of things. So it's like, I think I'm looking forward to it, you know, just because there's not a lot going on right now. Although people are creating, I mean, I think you guys were talking before we went live that there is some recordings, there's some stuff, there's some mixing going on. There's something in the works. Can you guys talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, because 2019 was such a good year for us. We really, like, we were firing on all cylinders. We felt like we were more or less a well-oiled machine. So I've got a project studio in my basement. That's, you know, it's a rehearsal studio, but I can easily set up the mics and stuff. And I was like, well, let's record over the holiday break of 2019. So Las Drogas, we were all down there. We started tracking, and then, you know, I was planning on like a spring release, but of course the pandemic happened, so that kind of like changed everything, and I started dragging my feet. So we are putting the finishing touches on the recording that we started like a year ago now. But I just have to do the final mixing and so forth. But
so we can look forward to a release spring 2021.
Yes. Yep.
Cool.
So we just went and recorded a bunch of old stuff and some new stuff too. We must have recorded 20 tunes. We're just like
something like that. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. When you have your own space like that, you can just kind of like let her rip. And we recorded everything live, and then I went back and overdubbed the guitar and vocals and some other things. But it was, you know how it is, like you start from the foundation up. So
that's the way I like to do it too.
Get the good drum takes, and you know, Brian was able to nail everything really quickly. You know, a lot of the stuff was first, second take.
Awesome.
Which is always a good feeling to have, you know.
Oh man,
go in and
for sure.
Hit it.
If I ever get to a fourth take, I start getting real upset.
Just get in your own head.
Yeah. It's like, okay, I've literally played this song, you know, 50 times before, but now that I have a microphone and somebody hit the recording button, I'm gonna fuck everything up.
I've done a lot of recording and produced stuff and produce other people's stuff too, and I have this unwritten rule of 3.
Right.
It's like, even if the first take is awesome, sometimes it's good to get 2 or 3 takes just to say you've got 3 takes and you pick the best one. But also, with that being said, if, you know, it's kind of like if they're not nailing it within the first 3 or 4 takes, then, you know, it's best to almost like take a break and come back to it.
Then, or move on to something else. And
the splitting of hairs can be pretty tedious, and then the magic starts to diminish. So
and then it's no fun for anybody, right? Like everybody's feeling like tense and like
That's how I feel like that show, the Equinox show that we did here, was because there was a gap between the previous show and that show that was big enough that it was like, okay, we're either going to be rusty, or there's going to be that little bit of extra nerves, which I think is a good thing. You know, if you can catch it at the right point. And then I think that's what we ended up with, was we were sort of heightened enough that it was like, oh yeah, muscle memory's coming back. So that made it a lot of fun. But I think if you were in any of our minds during that show, it's kind of exploratory too. Like, we are doing this right? Everybody's like,
I so know that feeling too. I know exactly that feeling.
We had 1 or 2 rehearsals, like from that January performance. We only had 1 or 2 rehearsals in the months leading up to that Equinox party. So it was like riding a bike, and felt good to kind of just be able to get back up there and whip it out.
No doubt.
Prior to that, you know, doing the string of shows that we had in 2019, it got so dialed in, which is nice because then you feel more relaxed on stage. It doesn't have to be so cerebral where you're anticipating changes or anything. So that's kind of like where we were. And then, you know, given the time off, it's just things kind of spread out a little bit. So
yeah, what kind, like, I'm always curious what people do, like, you know, in that situation, right? Like when you're, you know, maybe you haven't played in a while, but like you do know these songs really well, the muscle memory comes back. But like, are there any like pre-show like strategies that you have, or, you know, any kind of things that you guys do? I always like to, like, you know, share that with people if you do, or is it just kind of?
I've got a very bombs away attitude. It's like military. I just kind of suit up and grab my guitars and go into battle. And I mean,
right.
You know, I mean, I play a lot of music in a lot of different bands, and I have for years.
For sure.
To me, it's just like, you know, just dive in head first. I'm just try to be fearless, but you know, at the same time, you know, I know I'm not going to totally blow it.
Right.
Which is good feeling to have at this point.
I like the analogy, just I like the military analogy, just suit up and go in kind of thing, for sure.
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, you know, my brother, here's another thing about the band. My brother, Eric, he lives over an hour away.
Yeah.
So he's not local, whereas Brian and I live blocks away from each other right here in downtown Ypsilanti. So what we'll do is sometimes we'll meet at my place at the studio, and then we'll put together a quick rehearsal just to knock the dust off of it.
Right.
And then we'll go. So that's I guess a ritual, but it's for very practical purposes.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, let's warm up.
Yeah, it's usually best if we have at least one warm up before the gig. And then in my own brain, usually it's like, once we get through the first song, then the second song on where I'm like, all right, I'm good, you know.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Usually if you have a snag in a gig, it's not typically so much performance related as it is just who can you hear everybody?
Yeah.
You know, from behind the drums, that's always kind of a thing. Like, do you have a monitor? We were sort of reminiscing about some of the shows that we've done that we did in 2019.
Yeah, 2019 we played 18 shows, and we played some really good ones. We played some hilarious Spinal Tap ones. But
really? Yeah.
So
tell us about the Spinal Tap show.
That's been our barometer for like we've had all these shows come up. We're like, well, at least it's not like this other gig we did. And they kind of get better and better.
And we probably shouldn't name names. It wasn't so much us. It was just we found ourselves in this situation. We're kind of looking at each other like, we're gonna do this, right? the environment or the conditions were kind of like,
it was like,
how did we wind up here? And then of course all eyes on me because I'm the one that
you booked the show.
I'm the booker.
Taking our style of music and then making it almost coffee shop entertainable is basically what happened. So
that's hard.
Super compressed.
I've been there.
Yeah. So we just all kind of looked at each other like, well, we got to do it. So let's just do it. And really, I mean, we did it.
We did it.
So
did you have to pull out like brushes or anything, or did you just hit lighter?
You were playing that really that compact little drum kit from the other band.
So it was a supplied kit, you know, but it was one of these, like, it was a nice compact kit, but
somebody spent a lot of money on it. But sometimes
expensive stuff.
Those kits don't sound anywhere near.
They just don't have the for sure.
And it was really specific that we weren't to bring any of our gear. So it's not like I had a cymbal in my car I could run out and be like, okay, now I can ride. You know, it was like this really little thing here and a little thing here.
Wild. Yeah. So, that's a challenge.
And some of the songs are fast.
Yeah.
You know, well, a lot of them were kind of fast. So it was interesting. But that was the Spinal Tap type ordeal where you just kind of go with it, and then you really appreciate when you get somewhere like the Blind Pig and you do your sound check.
You can just let it rip.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Oh, we're good.
The subs are like vibrating the stage. You're like, okay.
You show up to the Blind Pig and you're not loud. It's kind of almost like that's the awkward, the inverse of that. But we're not going to name the name. We were asked, a guy that I kind of know from the scene. he had heard the band and he's like, yeah, I'm booking for this winery and it's out in the Irish Hills, like most of the wineries around here are. He's like, I'd love it if you came out there. I was like, well, are you sure? I mean, if you listen to our music, and I sent him the music, he's like, yeah, come on out. And I was like, all right, okay.
Yeah.
So we wind up at this winery, this beautiful countryside of the Irish Hills.
Nice place. Yeah.
Yeah, the winery was great. The beer and wine was delicious and all of that, but we show up and the band has to play in this like little tiny corner, and it was one of those pancake drum sets where the bass drum was like this.
Oh wow.
It's like a head.
Basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Wild.
And then I brought my little Fender Princeton, which is
I think the area we had to play in was about the size of this table.
Yeah.
like no joke.
I've done that. I've done that.
Plus or minus.
Yeah,
been there.
And then we're getting these older like winery crowds coming and going, and
sure,
it wasn't a normal gig. People weren't paying ticket price to see a rock band, but we were the entertainment.
Yep.
And it turned out well, and people were liking it, but it was hilarious because we're playing these rocking out tunes, but at a very like coffee shop. It was like a coffee shop kind of vibe.
That's awesome.
But we had a good time.
That's almost like kind of like reality show. Like you could have like where you throw bands into like these really challenging situations and just see how they do.
That's a great idea.
Well,
right?
I would love to see that.
That'd be awesome.
After the show, we all turned to each other and said, well, we
what?
could do that show. We can do any show.
That's right. Yeah.
That was our model for the whole year. It was like there's no topping that.
Yeah.
So,
well, you kind of remind me, like listening to you guys talk about that gig, like if you've ever been to the Willis Show Bar in Detroit, that stage is really small.
Yeah.
And if you've got 5-6 people and then you're just crammed in there and it's a really narrow room and they mic everything.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't be, and you're behind the bar too.
Mm-hmm.
So like the bartenders are walking in front of you and you're like, and you're playing and like people are watching you in that room because that's what people go there to do. And it's those gigs are hard when you're used to being at a certain decibel level.
It's like that listening room thing that's come back in popularity in a lot of ways. Like, the Arc. I mean, you really have to, you cannot hit a wrong note because it'll be like, right.
The record stops, and people are like, oh no, what? Oh, there we go. There's that. Crickets.
Well, the other funny thing about that particular winery show was the front entrance to the place was right next to where we were playing.
Yeah, the front door. I mean,
it was literally like right next to.
Yeah, as people were open, the first thing they saw was
hear the
my
door
butt
creaking
because I was like, I was playing right there, and they were coming in. I was turning around. I was like, "Oh, welcome."
Right.
I was practically the door.
You're
guy.
passing out like wine samples.
Yeah. Like I was doorman and frontman.
You did hold the door, I think.
Yeah, it's like part of in some ways, like when you're playing a gig like that and you're kind of stressed a little bit because you're doing something that you didn't expect to be doing exactly, and then like in hindsight, you're like, like you guys said, if we can do that, if we can pull that gig off, we can. Do just about any gig. At
this point in my life? I mean, I've had so many Spinal Tap moments, and I've had a lot of great experience, like that were the opposite of Spinal Tap too. So I mean, I just laugh at it. I mean, I'm glad that we still wind up in a situation like that once in a while, as long as it's not a complete train wreck. But I mean, everything went as planned. It was just kind of hilarious to look back on. But yeah, so that was 2019 where we were a new band again, and all new members and.
Well, all except for you. Kyle's the core member.
But we were saying yes to pretty much any show that seemed to make sense. So we want to play 19 shows. And this 2020, we were going to say, okay, we did a lot in 2019. Let's just play one really quality show per month. And, kind of a less is more thing. But then we all know what happened there. But so we had a really good, I guess, first run there. And, we played some festivals and we played some little intimate shows and stuff, and it was quite a nice spectrum of different experiences, and we could really tell that we could really gel.
That one show,
we could just show up
in the basement at that local venue here.
We played a house show. It was as far as house like basement shows go, it was really well done. I mean, they had a little stage and a decent PA system, and they had even a green room and stuff, and that worked out really well. But it was another Spinal Tap moment where kind of like we don't really care. We're like, well, let's just go up there and do our thing. We don't really have to, stress out about it. And it wound up being a really fun.
Oh yeah. It's definitely fun, but it's definitely one of those, you tuck it back in the in the memory banks. Like, yes.
Yeah. House shows
and
can
it makes
be,
you appreciate the bigger shows even more,
No doubt. But
you're asking about rituals and stuff. I mean, there were shows where we just all showed up at the show. There was no pre-rehearsal or pre-powwow or anything. And we still just showed up, and we're not like Guns N' Roses or anything like that. It's a train wreck. Like, well, who's gonna show up late and how late? We're gonna be sober. And like at this point in our lives, we like I said, we're pretty military about it. It's like be here at this time, we play at this time, load in, load out. So it's all very, I don't want to say like mechanical and all that, but I mean, it's kind of nice to have a team that you can rely on to show up. And do it. But at the same time,
credit to Brian. Too. Brian is like the best, most punctual drummer Kyle and I've ever worked with.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Kyle and I played in other bands for 20 years, and all those drummers had various levels of talent and stuff, and they were always late. And Brian's like the best with showing up on time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
you got to show up on time to the gig.
They
got a lot to set up.
Set.
The setup is
you got a drum kit in your back seat. There's nothing worse than showing up late. And if everybody's up there, you got to go up and tweak all these things. And inevitably, a wing nut fell out and rolled under your car seat, or I like to eliminate variables as much as possible before a gig.
Hell yes.
Just take a look around, see what it's like.
Well, Brian's you've had a pro career. Basically, that you've you have those experiences.
Shouldn't forget about that.
I mean,
Brian's got a pretty interesting past here.
Yeah, I want to hear about everybody's kind of musical past and stuff that you've been, you've done before and been working on. But that's a good segue.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Ohio before living in Michigan, and started with bands like a lot of people did when you were 12, 13 years old. And, I had a keyboard, always wanted drums, and then eventually bought drums. And I feel like it's just been nonstop ever since then. There was even a point, I'm 36 now, and I was like a point in recent years where I was like, I wonder if the music thing for me was just more of a fad, or if it was just something I wanted to do when I was younger. And it clearly isn't, which is like weird to like come to that realization this much later. That like this isn't going anywhere. Like, I always feel like I have to just go. So I've accepted that. But one of the bands that I was in for a long time, we were a band for probably 8 years. We ended up, long story short, getting a touring position with Bang Tango, Faster Pussycat, and LA Guns.
Nice.
So we were on, we had 2 tour buses that we took off with them and did this loop of shows that was, if anything else, like, first of all, very cool, something to have in the memory,
no doubt.
And the experiences. And it didn't necessarily end well because our bus broke down in Texarkana, and it actually broke down underneath a highway overpass that the 2 out of the 4 bands sat underneath for hours in the middle of the summer. And ended up spending the night at a truck stop, taking showers at the truck stop, and at one point sleeping in the back of a U-Haul. Because we had to unload gear that we brought. We had a trailer hooked up to this bus. So we were trying to, at that point, we were like, all right, cover our losses. Let's find a way to get back to Ohio. So we ended up stuffing all of our stuff into this box truck and driving it back to Ohio. So, I mean, part of that tour did continue on, but the majority of it that we were on, I mean, it was really neat. And every show was just so much different. And then seeing, how these guys who have been at this since mid 80s,
the Faster Pussy,
I mean guys, they all go through member changes and lineups and stuff. So one thing I definitely pulled from that is it's not so much a talent thing when it comes to having a successful band. It's definitely a personnel thing. Like if you can work well together, talent will sort of evolve. But over the years with that band, we were so young that when we got started, we weren't even allowed in the bars that we were playing because we weren't even 18 yet.
Right. Right.
So we found a couple bars that would allow us to do all ages shows. And, so we're in high school, and actually 2 of the guys, I don't think we're even in high school yet. And we were playing these bars and packing them.
Yeah.
And the bars loved it because we could have this all ages show. Then everybody clears out. Then they could start serving more drinks and, dim the lights from there. But
what was the name of the band that you toured with?
Was Altered Ending at the time. What's weird too is like this was cell phones and video stuff were kind of not quite a thing yet.
Yeah.
So there are some videos floating around out there in the ether that you can find of various places we went, and we documented a lot of stuff too. But
what year was this when you were
the
touring?
first tour was like 07. So, again, we still had like a camcorder with us and just trying to do what we could.
We didn't have 4K cameras in our pockets back then. That's for sure.
And we played a Rocklahoma, the Rocklahoma Festival, which
that's like the big hair metal festival for anything after the year 2000. Like you've heard of Rocklahoma.
Oh yeah.
That's like where all like the Skid Row like that'd be awesome to play that.
For sure.
I have pictures.
Twisted Sister might show up or something.
Yeah. We had Sebastian Bach was there, and
I'd love to party with Sebastian Bach.
Right.
we were in a tent with him behind all the buses and kind of got to be around him, and he was calling it Backlahoma, and he had a great show. But that was like, I think that was the first Rocklahoma festival they ever threw. So if you Wikipedia it does say, I think it was 07. That was the year we were there. We're listed in with the bands.
Nice.
So I can at least back that up. But it's funny when people ask about that little chapter of my life in any point, it's like, I've got this and this and this and this, but it's not like nowadays where you're just like, just go on our YouTube and we have this, all this documentation. So, but
so much has changed in that way.
Yeah.
So it was only like 12, 13 years ago.
I know.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And now, so then moving up here, it was like, what I was really happy about with Ypsi is the fact that it took no time at all before I was involved in something, whether it was just jams or little things here and there, and then they just kind of start to compile.
Yeah.
And so it's
there's a lot of musicians around here.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's been that way for as long as I can remember, but
it's a great little haven for artists.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a musician, it's a cozy little scene, and there's not much infighting or anything. There's no unhealthy competition or anything like that. It's really good.
No.
Yeah. So, I run into Brian up at the tap room, which is one of our local, it's like our local watering hole. It's the old bar in town. They still have some live music and stuff. And I don't know how it came up, but I remember because of another band I was in at the time, we were looking for a drummer. And that's where we kind of made that connection. But it wasn't until like 2 or 3 years later that I knew that you were a drummer, and I needed a drummer for Las Drogas because the other band, I'm not going to mention their name, but that had come to pass.
Yeah.
So, Brian, very unassuming, humble fellow. He shows up. He's got the gear. He's got the car. He's punctual. He's on
car check. Can you play?
He's great, easy to get along with. He puts up with our weird antics.
Right.
It's like after all these years of playing in bands and paying your dues with like flaky drummers and stuff, like we finally get Brian, and that's where I knew I was like, all right, 2019, we can say yes to all these shows. They all went very well.
Yeah,
we played, like I said, festivals on big stages with great sound and lots of people, and then we played these winery shows or a house
with tiny drums.
And it all worked out. It's like, all right, cool. So I know we have to work with you. We got a great crew. All the music's gelling. So that's why I decided to do the recording and the plan for the future, whatever the future holds, is get this recording out and really tighten down the screws on our promotion and online presence and like have the good new recordings, and then hopefully we'll be able to get back into playing some festivals and stuff. And we love playing in our own backyard, which is Ypsilanti. It's just a very comfortable, cozy place to just drive down the street and play a really cool show.
It is.
My plan is I would like us to spread out around the state and play some of those festivals and some of the better venues that are.
Yeah, you got to, and you have to do that. I think a lot of groups can kind of start to shoot themselves in the foot a little bit just by playing in town all the time, because then it's like, oh yeah, those guys are always playing, I'll just catch them next time, kind of thing. And yeah, you gotta be willing to travel, you know, in some concentric circles, and then who knows, eventually do a tour or something. But you can't tour until you know you got fans there.
Yeah.
And Nipsey's a good location because it's not far from Detroit. It's not terribly far from Lansing,
Yeah.
Flint, or even
Yeah.
Grand Rapids is only a couple hours away. And then of course Kalamazoo's got some good stuff.
Yep.
And Toledo's not far. And
it's not
rocks.
crazy even to go to Chicago. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
Yep.
you could do that. You could do that in a day if you had to.
But one last thing I wanted to say about the whole Brian, because Brian's got this great story of when he was young and he played in he lived the dream where he was opening for these bands that we've all heard of.
Yeah, no doubt.
Pussycat, Bang Tango,
That's super cool.
Rocklahoma with Sebastian Bach from Skid Row. I mean,
Right.
like, how cool is that? But
That's
I didn't even
great.
know we did that until after he was in the band and just kind of came up in conversation. And
Yeah.
it was nonchalant. He's
That's
like,
cool,
"Oh, yeah."
man. I mean, you know,
I think I just started asking, like, well, what other bands have we played? He's like, oh, well, there's this one when I lived in, because he's from the Akron area.
Right,
So
right.
he's like, oh, from Akron. And just matter of factly, it's like, yeah, we went on tour and buses and opening for Faster Pussycat. And I was like, whoa, all right, that's way cooler than a story I could tell about anything I've done.
He didn't lead with that, right?
No, that wasn't his, like,
that's cool. That's cool,
sales
man.
pitch when I first met him. So
Yeah.
that was kind of neat too.
Faster Pussycat, 20 years past their prime.
Yeah.
Peak
You
popular.
know,
they were a good band.
in
It's
the
just
day,
funny
they
because
were-
it's like
Yeah.
They were one of the top hair metal bands from
like
the
in
80s,
1989. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not a hair metal fan, really. I mean, I like the stuff as much as the next guy, but
When it comes on though,
it's
you know,
cool,
I
though.
kind of like get a little fired up.
It
It's
was-
like
oh, yeah.
it was like the rock of the time.
80s
I mean, it's
metal.
kind of
Yeah, that was-
iconic,
That was my high school years.
whether you liked it or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I like I just thought of this because, and that's why I said like D. Snyder, because I was watching the show Cobra Kai is like the spinoff of
I
like
just
the
saw that
Karate
last
Kid.
night with D. Snyder in that.
Yeah, and I was
that's
like,
great.
because they're using all the music from back in the day for
Yeah.
this new show concept, and so like the songs come on, you're like, oh yeah, whatever. Motley Crue came on. I think there's like a Motley Crue song in the last episode or whatever.
Yeah.
But they go to this show that what's his name, the bad guy Karate Kid, the Cobra Kai guy.
Yeah.
I can't think of his name, Johnny or something.
Yep.
And takes the kid to a show. He sneaks a kid into like underage kid into a show and hands him a beer. And
Yep.
D. Snyder's playing, and I'm like, how old is he now? He's got to be
in the 60s.
he's got to be like in his early 60s or something.
Or,
And
yeah,
he
he's probably
looked like
60.
the D. Snyder from back then. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, like it's TV. You're
Yeah.
far away, but like
Still
he
moving really
still
good.
rocking it. He looked good. I was like,
He
that's
is an inspiration to all of us.
yeah, man. D. Snyder. Who knew?
If I look as good as D. Snyder when I'm that age, oh wait, no, that's
Seriously.
everybody knows D. Snyder's like one of the ugliest guys in rock.
Right. But
that's
he's
with all due respect to D. Snyder.
Yeah.
But no, I heard a story that is probably an urban legend, but they all wore makeup. Was it Quiet Riot or whatever?
Twisted Sister.
Twisted Sister. Oh yeah,
Shows how much I-
they definitely wore makeup.
The legend is that they wore makeup because D. Snyder was so ugly they had to like cover him up. somehow.
Right. Oh man.
Well, think about the songs that those guys, all those bands wrote. I'm a big Scorpions fan. Like, I
Oh
love
yeah, the Scorpions are
They've
pretty,
been around
pretty dang great.
and they've been around for a really long time. Well, the groups that are still doing it today from that era, they didn't write easy songs to sing. They didn't write easy songs
Yeah.
to play.
Right.
So you got to give those guys a lot of credit. All this time later, if they're still doing it, these aren't like slow ballads, at least not most of them. So
No,
I don't know. That's a big tribute to those guys.
just the level of shredding alone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as a guitar player, I'm like, I never got into playing that style of music, but I appreciate what's involved,
Sure.
right? In everything,
Mhm.
not just the guitar, but the drumming and the singing.
Yep.
It's a pretty high bar to
Yeah.
set, hitting those notes and then still being able to do that
And the
in
Rolling
your
Stones
60s.
are-
Yeah.
the Rolling
without
Stones are
sounding like
pushing-
trash,
pushing
it's pretty
80.
amazing. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying the Rolling Stones are shredding on their instruments. But
No.
they're still playing shows and they're in their 80s.
Yeah,
Or
that's-
they're about 80, I guess.
Yeah.
78, something like that. And then the drummer,
Close
for the
enough.
Stones, I think he's 80.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Charlie's the
Charlie
oldest.
Watts. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, I hope I'm still playing rock and roll when I'm that old, but
Why not?
it's going to be,
Yeah, right.
it's from what I hear, it's physically challenging. But they probably, the Rolling Stones have probably been like all their organs have probably been replaced with young people's organs. Blood transfusions and stuff.
Right.
So that's probably why they're able to live
Yeah,
so long
they get some kind of special serum injections that, you know, who knows what they have access to, but they're still doing it. But I like that, like you were talking earlier, like, you know, can you imagine not, you know, like you've been doing it so long, you've been playing music so long, like how do you even imagine not doing it?
Right.
You know, it's just going to look differently. Probably it's going to look a little different as you go, but
Eric and I started our first band when I was a freshman in high school, and we.
Awesome. What was the name? Do you guys remember the name of the band?
Oh yeah, still got a bumper sticker on the back of my truck.
Nice.
It's pretty crusty looking, but the band name was Sin Embargo.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I know that. Yep, Sin Embargo.
So we formed this band when we were kids, and we actually
1992.
Technically, we're still around because we still play a show once in a while. We didn't play one last year, but we're still the drummer in that band is one of our best friends. We all stood up in each other's.
That's cool that you guys still like know the songs and can pull them back out like that. That's fun.
But that's, you know, so Eric and I have been playing music for so long, and you know, when I was shopping for a bassist for Las Drogas, I was like, man, you know, it would be really cool because Eric hadn't been playing music as much, and I knew he missed it, and I knew that if I hire him, I know what I'm getting. And we get along so well. So I mean, you know, because when you hire some bassist off the street, you don't know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this is a sure shot. You know, he's reliable. He's a good bassist. We get along. We can, you know, it's like more bonding time for us as brothers.
I think that's awesome.
Really
I love the family band connection kind of thing because I mean, it could go either way. Like it's like I think like how many, right, yeah. Oasis. The Robinson brothers,
Black Crows.
The Black Crows. I mean, we could find all like the train wrecks of like playing with brothers, but then there's a lot of, you know, like there's like the Avett brothers who are actually brothers and they do their thing. And so I think it's really cool that you guys have that connection too.
It's worked out well for us. I mean, like I said, it gives us a chance to hang out more and work together more. And you know, I think it's kept us closer over the years. Just having that musical bond, and then even when we get together for family get-togethers and stuff, we have that much more to talk about and joke, laugh about, and plan about, and so forth.
Because so, like in your family, is like from a music standpoint, were you guys kind of the musicians, or are there other people like, or like if at a family gathering, are people like, oh, you guys are musicians, come on, entertain us? Like,
well, there's
that does happen.
It's kind of an interesting. Our dad played bagpipes in the Flint Pipe Band back in the 1950s.
So I didn't know that. I've known Kyle for a long time. So I didn't know
the funny thing is, he thought our music, he called it train wreck music.
right.
That was always funny. But he used to, you know,
he would joke about it.
Yeah, he joked, but he never discouraged us.
That's cool.
Our parents weren't like full-blown musicians, but they were music lovers, and they had a very open mind, and they listened to a lot of different types of music, everything from
our mom sang in high school, and she played violin when she was in high school. And she did some piano along the way.
An appreciation for what you guys were doing.
Dabbled and stuff.
Yeah.
And then,
we didn't really come from a musical family, but we did have some cousins that came. Like, very musical.
On our mom's side of the family, there's a whole bunch of her cousins and their kids that have been, you know, they were all growing up in the 70s, you know, classic rock era. So a lot of those guys played guitar, played bass, drums, you know, they had their own bands on the east side of Detroit, and they rocked out, you know, in the 70s and the 80s.
That was inspirational to us as kids.
Oh, for sure.
See them like, well, cool. Our cousins are these really cool people, and so I think that kind of planted a seed for me.
Yeah, Kyle, you're just telling me over Christmas, our one great aunt and uncle's house, and when you were a little kid, you were down in their basement at one of the family get-togethers way back when, and you stumbled across their
I can
jam
actually
room.
Pinpoint the seeds that led me to where I'm at now with guitar. When as far back as I can remember, you know, a little kid at relative's house, you know, the old folks are around the table chatting, and the little kids are like, oh, this is boring, I'm gonna go explore. Well, I went down into the basement, and that's where all like the drums and the electric guitars are. I just remember I must have been like 4 or something. I just remember seeing there was a Les Paul on a couch. And you know, little kids like, oh wow, knobs and like strings, and so that fascinated me. And then I remember a couple of years later, seeing Bill Haley and the Comets playing "Rock Around the Clock" on television. You know the famous black and white.
film reel
that we've all seen. And I saw that, I was like, that is cool.
Right.
I want to do that. And
Right.
then our mom, who was she wasn't a flower child, but she was from the 60s and all that. She had stuffed in the back of her closet. She never really learned how to play, but she had an old Silvertone acoustic guitar. So those three pieces there, I was like, well, I want to play guitar because there's something about it that's cool. I can't quite put my finger on it yet, but it seems like a really cool thing. And there's one in the house. So I remember like digging it out, and that was kind of the
nice.
And then of course pestering my mom for lessons for years before she finally caved in.
Yeah, and it was I remember you were 11 when you started taking guitar lessons.
But it took a while. I think our mom was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. I don't know if he's serious enough, and I don't want him to turn into a rock and roller. Well, I was serious enough, and I did turn into a rock and roller.
Right, right.
I'm glad I did. But yeah, those are
for
the
sure.
three
He
things
ground her down.
Right.
Yeah. And then when I was convinced, like, well, I play guitar, and the next coolest thing to do as a guitarist is to form a band. So I taught Eric how to play bass.
Nice.
Well, actually, I had a quick little dabble in drums for like 6 months, and then it just, I don't know, it just wasn't, I mean, it was fun to hit stuff, but I just didn't get into it as much. And then Kyle convinced me into, like, he was playing guitar. He's like, well, you can play bass guitar, and then we'll just go from there. And so he showed me kind of the rudiments, the basic stuff. And then
that's because I could actually teach that too. Like I couldn't teach anybody how to play drums. So I was like, I can teach you how to play bass.
Yeah.
So a couple years later, Kyle was getting pretty good on guitar, and he just showed me enough on bass to get something going. And then a couple of your friends started jamming with those guys a little bit, and that was the roots of Sin Embargo, if you will, in 92.
One quick thing too, because he wanted to learn how to play drums. Our parents found a good deal on some vintage drum set. Back then, before vintage was cool. Like, yeah, they
probably worth a ton of money now or something like that, right?
For $50, they bought some like vintage Ludwig kit off of some guy we knew, and we had it in the basement. We were jamming
no
on
cymbals
that.
Though. It was just
no cymbals,
just the drums.
Nice.
We were around on that, but we kind of decided, well, drums are cool, but that's not like we want a bass and guitar. But we've always had a drum set in the house, especially since we always wound up hosting the rehearsals. So with that being said, Eric and I can play drums too. I mean, we're not as good as Brian, of course, because he is a true drummer.
Right, right.
But we play drums and stuff.
Yeah, drums have always been the elusive instrument. I mean, and obviously, like, I haven't spent the time to do it, but I just feel so out of my element when I sit behind a kit. I marvel at drummers all the time, like, where I'm just like, you're using all of your limbs at the same time, and they're all doing different things. I'm like, there's just something in your brain that's like hardwired to like make that easier, because I can barely just use two hands when I'm playing guitar. Like sometimes it's like
you also have to live with somebody who's very tolerant of a loud drum set.
There's that, yeah. Now there's a lot of like cool technologies and stuff now. I've seen like some of these kits that come out that like feel like you're hitting drums, but they're like
those
screen.
Are really cool.
I mean, they're probably expensive, right? But like
those are fun though.
It's possible.
I'm on a waiting list for one of those.
Really?
Actually, yeah, because of pandemic.
Oh, sure. Production went down.
But the brains that those things come with now, and the playability of the mesh heads, they're incredible.
Yeah,
just constantly expandable.
Was that V drums they call them? Yeah, they've been around for a while, but they just keep getting better.
Yeah, and you can fit them in the corner of your room. Kind of like they're easier. They're not as loud, so you can rock out. Doesn't take up as much space. And
I just want them for rehearsal in quiet scenarios, and for some tracking. Like if you're just demoing ideas, especially during a pandemic, this is when I thought, there'd be something nice to have now. But you just to be able to somebody shoots you a riff, and it's via email or whatever. I can just put it right in my thing and plug the kit in and
play.
Yeah, that's cool.
Send them back a loop of drums, and you can build tons of music that way. I have friends in Ohio that send me riffs all the time, and it just eats me up because I can't. I've sent them tracks back, but I would go to my spot and mic the kit. Right. And of course, down the road, find out that mic wasn't working, or the room, it was a police car in the background or something. So, it gets frustrating. It'd just be so much easier to just.
Yeah, the technology side of it is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's another cool thing with Brian too. He's got studio experience. He does his own recordings.
Yeah. As you said, you mentioned
all of that.
keyboard too, right? So
Mhm.
you can bang some things out on that just to at least
Not really.
notes.
I mean,
No.
I like to do it.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I could say as far as skill is. Like, I love playing keys and pianos and
Yeah.
stuff, but if you know, as far as a technical standpoint,
Sure. I get that.
whammy.
I'm kind of the same way. It's like I learned some stuff very early. My mom was a piano player, so it was like, okay, I can play chords. I
Right.
know enough to be dangerous or find some notes, but I'm not hopping on stage with keyboards anytime soon.
Right,
So I get
right.
that. It's cool. I love hearing your you know, the backstory of how you guys kind of started, you know, getting into music, and I love I love that you've been playing together for this time, and you had this momentum going on, and I know like everybody's kind of like everything seems up in the air. Like it's hard to plan your summer tour when you don't even know what that's going to look like. But I think we're all pretty sure we can do the, you know, the outside shows and stuff like that. So I'm super excited to hear the recordings. So I can't wait to release those. To you guys release those. Make sure you let us know so we can also share on our network. We always like to do that.
Yep, it'll be on Spotify and all that stuff. So we'll share all that information, and we are spending this downtime from live shows with a focus on the studio recordings and getting some of our other promotional.
I mean, what else are you gonna do musically if
Right,
you're not doing that? I mean, it's you know, we're kind of in the same boat. We're just writing new stuff and you know, bouncing ideas around and you know, getting together as much as we can. It's hard sometimes because obviously, you know, we want to do it safely, but we're doing it, and I'm glad you guys are doing it too. It's I'm looking forward to seeing you guys play again in the summer. I definitely enjoyed that performance. You know, there are uncertain things, but like, what do you guys think is most certain? Either not necessarily for the project, but just in general.
Well, I'm certain that we'll stick together as a band, hopefully for a long time, and you know, we'll get back out on the road playing and all of that, and I'm sure things will just get smoother. Like I said, we were just kind of getting started, and things are going really well, and they're still going well. We're just kind of on a break right now.
They're going well differently.
But you know, I mean, a lot of people complain about 2020, and I mean, I think 2020 still was a beautiful year in a lot of ways. Yeah, the pandemic was unfortunate, but I don't think that's any excuse to, you know, like, you know, say that it ruined your life. I mean, for me anyway, I know that's kind of a bold thing to say because I know some people's really ruined their situation, but I think a lot of silver linings can be found in a situation like this. And you know, they say after the dark ages, there was the Renaissance, and I'm hoping that something like that happens for artists everywhere, but especially artists around here in our scene. So like you said, people get creative. It's like, okay, you know, people must create. There's a pandemic going on that's restricted us in some ways, but how can we work within those parameters and restrictions and still
think inside the box?
So I'm certain that creative people will get creative when it comes to having an outlet for their art. So again, you know, I try to stay positive, and that's where I was going with the whole, like, 2020 wasn't so bad. Well, it was terrible in a lot of ways, but I mean, I found it to be very enlightening in a lot of ways, and that's why I try to stay positive about all of that. And I'm very positive that we'll get through this quickly. It'll be over before we know it, I hope, and we can all get back to some form of normalcy. But I think this adjust, we've all had to adjust. I think it will maybe create some good things that will stay, you know, be here to stay. For example, the streaming element. Which I was like, I don't know about the streaming thing. It's kind of lame. But then again, I've seen some really great streaming things. For example, Grove's been doing great stuff with streaming.
Thank you.
You know, rethinking events and rethinking how bands can operate. So I think that's what we can look forward to. Brian, what do you think?
Definitely. And silver linings is kind of one of my favorite things as far as what keeps coming up in conversation about how bad things have been for a lot of people. A lot of people have died, you know, horrible things. But, you know, on the lighter side of things, like, this is the first time that really our society's ever had kind of like a glitch, you know, moving forward. For those of us who had to take time off work, I mean, for me, it was probably the first time I've ever had a chunk of time where I wasn't just strapped to a job, you know, moving forward. And, you know, I think for a lot of people that downtime either sent them in one of two directions. You know, either they had a great relationship and it strengthened it, or maybe it was shaky and that this was the straw that broke it, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you look at it like that, it's, you know, there's blooming flowers all over the place as far as that goes. And creative people, they have had to do other things to keep that emotion going. So, you know, I think it's just not easy to share it with everybody right now, but when it does happen, I mean, the idea of like watching concerts online is something I've done in the shutdown, and it's like you really do get that feeling like, God, I wish now I really know how much I miss it. Because,
right.
You know, when you knew there was a concert in Detroit every weekend, it's like, yeah, well, I don't know. My toe hurts. So
my toe hurts. So totally. Yeah.
Know, but now it'd be like, who, where, really? Like, let's. So
hopefully. That makes me think too, that like, you know, when people can reasonably attend concerts again, I think it's gonna.
Yeah.
I think people are like, you know, just sitting here as musicians, we're like, man, I can't wait to like just go to a show again, let alone play a show. I think a lot of people are going to feel like that. I think it's you know, when it's safe again and more people can attend and all that, I think it's going to like,
it's just
it's going to be huge.
Yeah, I think there'll be more of a hunger, more of a fire. And like I said, you know, that's what people are, you know, rationalizing. It's like, well, you know, after the Dark Ages, there was this resurgence of art and creativity and a renaissance. So
the Renaissance. I like that.
Here and
an environmental standpoint too is, you know, there's a lot less traffic.
No doubt.
On the roads right now. I hope that keeps up. I know people have had to change the way they work. If they're able to work from home, they can. But, you know, when you have that pause, you do look around, you're like, God, did we really need all that?
Yeah.
And all these places around the country, you know, LA, they're like, oh my God, we can see the mountains now because there's not as much smog. Or,
isn't that crazy? Yeah.
They're talking about whales in Hudson Bay.
Whales in Lake Michigan.
I mean, there's going to be impacts that we're underestimating right now that I think we're going to see.
Yeah.
So hopefully people find ways to streamline, you know, and make, you know, easier on the environment to do their job.
That's a good point for sure. Yeah.
So that's another one of those things you got to consider that could shape the way we do things moving forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it has. I think it's going to continue to shape things. I think we're never quite going back to the way things were, especially now that people realize, oh, I can be productive and get all this work done. I don't need this giant skyscraper.
Yeah.
I feel bad for there's the real estate industry there with that kind of thing and big office buildings and stuff. And I think people will come back to some degree, but I think it'll be more flexible in the future. I'm hopeful, and this is a really good point. We like clean air.
Yeah.
We're like whales.
Yeah.
You know. What do you think?
It's a good question. I guess it's kind of a blessing in disguise. I've actually continued working this entire time at my job, and it's kind of, it did give me a little bit of I guess more self-reflection time, and then it does make me appreciate the band more. You know, like it was like 2019 we played a lot of gigs, that was great and all, but it was pretty bang it through really fast.
Oh yeah.
2020 it was like
a lot of work.
Yeah,
it was a lot of work.
Step back a little bit and kind of just allow time to be able to see things in a little different angle. Appreciate family time a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't know if my wife and daughter think the same way, but I'm sure they do it on some level. But you know, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword in some ways, but also the other, you know, you're still able to find some benefits to, like, just being able to stop back and take an extra breath for maybe like we've never been able to do before.
A good reset for society, and I hope it does reset and people develop more of an appreciation for the things we were deprived of.
Yep.
You know, it shows us patience and so forth. And hopefully everybody will want to consume live music when the time is right again.
Yeah, I think that
because live music is a big part of our lives. I mean, we're all musicians and we're all performers.
Not able to do it very much right now. So I think people will. I think people are missing it for sure. Even non-musicians, music fans in general. So I know I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the summer. I think we'll be able to do some things and like really appreciate that again this summer. But yeah. Well, Las Drogas, thank you guys for coming by.
Thanks, thank you.
And taking the time out of your Saturday to do this. It was super nice to see you guys. And if you guys haven't seen the performance that aired just before this interview, definitely go back and check it out. And if somebody wants to keep an eye on, follow, listen to, where should people be going to do that?
Las Drogas is easily found online, but you have to be a little careful because the wording, it's a Spanish word. But if you type in Las Drogas Ypsilanti or even just Las Drogas Rock, you'll find all of our information. We've got a lot of videos on YouTube. We've got Bandcamp. Las Drogas Ipsy is our Bandcamp handle.
Cool. We'll post that in the chat.
Yep. And yep, we're on Spotify and all that. So what we'll do is we'll get you that information so you can put it.
Yeah, we'll throw it up. Make sure people have the resources to check out all your music. Check out the performance, and we've got some more Grove sessions coming up in the following weeks. So look out for that. We'll be announcing those soon. And thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grove.